Hi, I'm Dan Smith of DPS Legal Counsel, and today I'm going to be talking about one of those big problems that you hope never happens to your business or your professional practice. And it probably won't happen, but when it does, you need to deal with it. And I'm talking about that three-letter word, tax, T-A-X, or that other three-letter word, IRS. When you get a notice in the mail that you've been selected for whatever reason for an IRS examination or audit, you need to take it seriously. Now today is May the 20th of 2019, and today the Internal Revenue Service issued its annual IRS data report or data book. And what that is a compilation of all the statistics dealing with the IRS and tax returns and audits and things that have happened in the prior fiscal year. Fiscal year for the government, including the IRS, runs from the 1st of October in a year until the end of September in the next year. So this report covers the period from October 1, 2017 through September 30th, 2018. And it's interesting what this report shows. If you're worried about being audited by the IRS for your business or your professional practice, you probably don't have to worry too much because of all the returns that were filed, the percentages of the returns that were selected for examination is really quite small. Approximately 1/2% of the returns filed during this time period covered by the data book that came out today were selected for examination. So less than 1%, essentially 1/2% of the returns that were filed were selected for examination. But for those unlucky individuals who were selected, it doesn't really matter what the percentages are. Generally, they were audited. And the statistics in the report that contains all the statistics are interesting. It breaks it out by what the adjusted gross income levels are for particular audits. It breaks it out in a number of different ways. But bottom line is very few returns get audited. Now, I wanted to kind of give you a few points to keep in mind if you do get selected for an audit. The first thing is, if you get selected for an audit, number one, remain calm, but don't ignore the notice. In other words, don't just fail to open the envelope because it says IRS on the outside. Don't open it and then put it away and not deal with it because it's from the IRS. If you get an IRS notice, open the letter, open the envelope, deal with it. And when you deal with the IRS, number two, always be respectful and always be truthful. But before you even get to that point, once you find out that you've been audited, you have the first fundamental choice you have is who are you going to get to handle the audit for you? Are you going to handle it yourself, or are you going to hire someone to take care of handling the audit for you? Of the audits conducted by the Internal Revenue Service, about 3/4 or 75% of the audits are done through the mail. They're correspondence audits. You get a letter, they'll ask for things, you send it in, you respond to what they ask for. It's all done by mail. You never see a person from the Internal Revenue Service. Doesn't mean it's not a real audit. It's just it's a correspondence audit, and that's most audits. 75% of audits are conducted that way. 25% of the audits are face-to-face field examinations where an IRS agent actually comes to see you. Now, if you are really sure and are really clear when you get a letter from the IRS, if it's a correspondence audit and it asks for a specific piece of information that you have, and you know that the piece of information you have is going to answer the question without question, that's going to be the end of it, maybe you feel confident that you can handle it yourself. But I would say for most people, in most situations, if you do get an examination letter in the mail from the IRS, you're going to want to consider hiring a professional to represent you with respect to the audit. One of the great advantages in hiring someone is that they can be the face vis-a-vis the IRS. They can interface with the IRS and essentially keep you out of direct contact with the IRS. That's a great thing to do. That great benefit you have when you hire someone to represent you. But if you do handle it yourself, you do need to make sure that you are always truthful and you are respectful. And the next tip I would give you would be, if you are handling it yourself, or even if you're not, and someone shows up and identifies himself or herself as an IRS special agent, you need to take full notice of that. Special agent means that Internal Revenue Service agent is a criminal investigator or an IRS agent who is tasked with checking to see if the taxpayer has committed a crime. If you get visited by a special agent and they would identify themselves as a special agent, you should probably stop talking if you've been talking to the IRS at that point. Tell them respectfully that you would like to get an attorney and have the attorney get in touch with them. At that point, it's very serious and you don't want to make a mistake and say something that can be held against you and that you'll regret later. So, going back, if you get a notice, don't ignore it. If you do handle things yourself, be respectful, be truthful. Consider strongly not handling it yourself from the very outset. Get someone to represent you, keep you out of the loop. And if you have a special agent from the IRS get involved, definitely don't talk with them directly. Have your attorney at that point deal with the Internal Revenue Service and the special agent. Finally, you do have a choice when you're audited. If you do want to have someone handle it, you can have your CPA handle it, you can have an attorney handle it for you, or an enrolled agent. A lot of people, if they've had their returns prepared by their CPA, will just have their CPA handle their audits. There are some pros and cons to that. One con is that you don't have the same privilege, attorney-client privilege, with your CPA. He's not an attorney, as you do with your attorney. So things that you tell your CPA may not be privileged. So if you have an issue where there may be a question about whether you underreported your income or overstated your deductions, or even if there's a chance that your problem relates to a mistake potentially that the CPA made on your return, you might want to consider having an attorney, a tax attorney, handle your audit. That's about it for today. It's a problem that we hope we never run into as a small business owner or owner of a professional practice, but it does happen occasionally to about 0.5% of those people who file returns. When it does happen to you, stay calm, but follow the steps of getting someone to help you if possible, and making sure that that the information that's asked for from the IRS is given to them, but no more. It's like if they ask you for A, you don't respond with A and B, you give them A. Hope this helps, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks.